Hi, and welcome to the SPN Recyclability Conference. Our speakers will be covering many aspects of recyclable packaging, which we believe that you'll find extremely informative. Like our previous conference, it will run exactly the same, so any questions that you have, please feel free to message them directly. Their contact details will be on our conference. We will start with one of our sponsors, KURZ.
Hello, and a warm welcome to you all. My name is Christophe Dujardin, and together with my colleague Christian Döllner, I will now shortly introduce you to the company KURZ.
Also from my side, a very warm welcome. So let me show you the company KURZ. The company KURZ is a family-run business since over 120 years. The company does have over 5,500 employees in different production sites, like in China or the USA. We have a network of subsidiaries and agencies all over the globe, and we are provider of coatings and the thin film technology. Christoph, can you show the audience what the thin film technology is?
Well, thin film technology is nothing more or nothing less than the application of very thin lacquers to an end product. To transport those very thin lacquers, we need a guiding support. That guiding support is a polyester carrier that is not transferred to the end product. Only the very thin lacquers are. One of those lacquers, or one of those layers, is aluminium. But that layer is that thin that it is 6,000 times thinner than a human hair.
So if you still raise the question, what is thin film technology? What is the decoration for? So have a look on this. These are different products or different industries where you can find us. So like in the automotive, in the banknote sector, or in the graphic industry, like on packaging or on papers. So as well as electronic devices. So if you want to go deeper with us, watch our YouTube channel or the social media, LinkedIn and Facebook. You can also have a visit on our webpage on www.kurz-graphics.com, or you get in contact with Christoph or myself. Thank you for your attention. Stay tuned, stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
First up, let's hear about a recyclable packaging solution from the company Ethecho.
Hi, my name is Max from Ethecho, and I will explain you briefly our solution. Our solution consists of a smart, safe, recyclable, and sustainable solution for the transportation of your goods. It's a sustainable packaging which can surely used also as a transportation packaging. And what about perishables? Well, perishables require a safe solution to guarantee the cold chain during your logistic trip. In fact, everyone on the globe deserves access to healthy food and medication, and Ethecho contributes to this by offering a safe, sustainable and smart concept with a packaging component and a monitoring component. We all want our children to eat fresh and healthy food, as well as our elderly surely when they are still living at home. And we love the convenience to receive it on the doorstep. But what happens if your delivered food isn't that fresh at all? Things can turn really messy if the delivery isn't that fresh at all and generate a lot of waste. These packages don't solve the problem and aren't sustainable. Talking about one-way packaging, cool vents with an emission of plus 15% of carbon dioxide, soon they will be no longer welcome in low emission zones. At the contrary, the Ethecho box can be a valid alternative. It is highly isolating, it can have an individual number, they are reusable up to 250 times and recyclable at their end of life. We use eutectic plates for cold, frozen, and even hot. And we can offer optionally another packaging to simplify your fulfillment or for your personal branding. We use cooler plates that can guarantee the cold chain up to 12, 24, or 36 hours, and freezing plates up to 8 or 12 hours without dry ice, and even longer if you are using dry ice. Let's make our box smart. We have the box, but we also have Ethecho Monitor, which is our cloud platform, Ethecho Mobile, which is an app that you can install on your smartphone or on your device, your tablet. We use long life sensors with a wide range, which are able to be integrated on your platform via RFID, BLE, or IoT solutions. And we can produce some smart graphs for your follow-up and KPIs. So our concepts can be integrated both. On the one hand, we have the cold chain packaging, and the other hand, the intelligence. We have cooling plates to maintain the positive temperatures between 0 to 8 degrees, and freezing plates to maintain the negative frozen temperatures minus 18 degrees. End-to-end monitoring is possible in your cars for transportation, in your drop-off points or pickup points, lockers, and for your e-commerce deliveries towards your customers. All data are stored on our sensors and can be transmitted to our cloud platform. They can be consulted at any moment, online or with a smartphone or tablet. The Ethecho Smartbox contributes not only to a circular ecosystem, to the delivery process and return process, but guarantees also the food safety of your whole process, reducing waste and avoiding health issues. So you see different solutions for e-commerce, smart city, short chain, farm to fork, smart lockers, not at home delivery, in very different ways. Our objective is to go towards a zero emission delivery. And we are looking for candidates to work with Ethecho to obtain these objectives. Are you a producer or merchant looking for a safe, sustainable, and smart concept to get your precious goods to your customers? Are you a logistic player willing to offer your customers a safe, sustainable, and smart concept for their deliveries? Well, stop thinking then out of the box and start thinking in and around the Ethecho box. Curious to discover more? Well, be welcome and contact us at jos@ethecho.com or via our website. We thank you for your attention.
Next up is Ken Adams from Recover. Ken will be talking about Recover packaging.
Hi. How do you open a pack of bacon? In our house, we stab it with a knife, cut away the lidding film, and after you've taken out a few rashers, you then wrap it up in cling film. It's messy and very, very far from being ideal. Another example is for ready meals. Well, at the minute, you're supposed to remove the lidding film and throw it away. You then recycle the empty tray. Now, each lidding film only weighs a few grams. In the UK, we get through 1.3 billion ready meals a year, so that's over 5,000 tonnes of this lidding film being sent to landfill, and that's from ready meals alone. We need to address the issue of plastic waste, and we need to do it urgently. What good are all the benefits from plastic packaging if in the end the packaging clogs our landfills, pollutes our oceans, and takes away from the health of the planet? Plastic waste impacts the quality of human and animal lives across the globe. This is an issue demanding our attention in the here and now. Recycling has a prominent role to play in addressing plastic waste. However, one of the biggest issues facing the recycling industry is flexible plastics. Over the year, we've been highly efficient in reducing material thickness while continually improving functionality. Unfortunately, the end result is that plastics, they're just too flimsy to be recycled. To establish the infrastructure to properly process flexible plastics, it would require a major investment and it would take over 10 years to implement. But the impact would be on less than 1% of plastics by weight. There's no doubt that plastic packaging receives a bad press. In fact, sometimes it's easy to feel like plastic is one of the greatest evils facing society. But I would say that this view doesn't take into account the whole picture and look at the positives that a responsible use of plastics can bring to modern life. The vast majority of food packaging is there for a very good reason. Packaging technologists have designed highly effective packaging which ensures that the food reaches the consumer in good condition. Packaging plays a key role in packing, transit, in the store, and even once you get the product home. It should be noted that food packaging also plays a vital role in communicating to the consumer. We shouldn't ignore the hard work of the creatives behind the designs which persuade the consumer to buy the packs in the first place. We also need to recognise the packaging producer who turns those sexy designs into a reality. And aside from the cosmetics, packaging plays a vital and a very practical role in communicating allergen information, use-by dates and cooking instructions. Ripping open that packaging and wrapping it in cling film or sandwich bags can have a much more serious impact than the loss of brand recognition and increased packaging waste. When packaging doesn't function well, the health of consumers can be put at risk. Factors such as growth of bacteria or cross-contamination are evident. A common misconception is that bacteria does not survive in the fridge. In fact, Listeria can grow at temperatures of 4 degrees, and moist, cool environments such as your fridge can be breeding grounds for bacteria. Unopened packaging is rarely a problem, but it's what happens after it's opened that's the key. Now, unfortunately, despite its benefits, we can't say that packaging is perfect. Rat rage is estimated to be responsible for up to 60,000 people a year being treated for injuries. In one survey, 71% say they've been injured while opening packaging, and in 2004, the US had 6,500 emergency room visits from opening packaging. Knives such as this, scissors, hammers, screwdriver, and teeth are common implements used to open packaging. There's got to be a better way. So while plastic packaging is clearly not the great evil that some would have us believe, there are areas that we need to address. But packaging is only one part of the sustainability picture. And there's another major issue that we cannot ignore, and that is the issue of food waste. I was astonished when I learnt the true impact of food waste. Just 1 kilogram of food waste produces the same amount of deadly carbon emissions as sending 25,000 500ml plastic bottles to landfill, and that's according to Zero Waste Scotland. It's incredible. So reducing food waste has never been more important. The last 8 years were the hottest in global records that date back to 1880, with 2021 ranking as the 6th hottest year ever, according to analysis from NASA. On top of that, every decade since the 1960s has been hotter than the previous one. Scientists have declared that we are right now in a climate crisis. Climate instability and rising temperatures affects food security. Even before the war in Ukraine, there were concerns over global food security, but now that war has added to those concerns, with major worries over supplies of wheat and sunflower oil. The impact of a major reduction in the availability of fertilisers is likely to be felt for years to come as crop yields fail. Reducing food waste is critical for both food security and the environment. Sometimes you need to look hard to see the silver lining, but the COVID pandemic has seen consumer patterns change. Self-reported food waste levels in the UK fell by 34% during the first lockdown of 2020. That is the sharpest decline on record. Research carried out by Zero Waste Scotland, RAP, and the University of Leeds suggested more considerate shopping and creative cooking has contributed to this initial fall. Local food production and local shopping trends are accelerating across the UK. There is a willingness from consumers to be more responsible with their choices. But we need to ensure that they are guided and supported to make those choices. It needs to be an industry-wide, joined-up approach. The responsibility cannot lie with food producers alone, and retailers need to enable the changes required of consumer habits. Packaging also has a key role to play in supporting the reduction of food waste and in changing consumer behaviour. Well, earlier on I mentioned that there has to be a better way, so I want to take this opportunity to summarise the extent of the challenge for that better way. Right, number one, we need packaging which is easy to open by the consumer, and that's going to avoid wrapperage. Two, we need packaging that can be reclosed multiple times to keep food fresher for longer. Three, we need to retain the original packaging to avoid the use of secondary packaging. Four, when reclosed, the closure should be secure to reduce the potential risk of cross-contamination. Five, packaging needs to look attractive to consumers so they buy it in the first place. Six, the packaging also needs to continue to clearly communicate key information to the consumer. Seven, just a minor one, it needs to be suitable for recycling by the existing processes. No problem really. So to give you a bit more information about me, I've got a long background in labels and packaging. I've been involved in technical roles and commercial roles and pretty much everything in between. I've worked across a number of industries including telecoms, consumer electronics and tobacco. However, the food industry has been the main focus for several years, and I've worked with many of the main manufacturers and retailers. Now, I've got a track record in delivering sustainable packaging solutions. With the Reseal It label, I've designed packaging which improves convenience to the consumer, but also helps reduce food waste. I'm very proud to say that several million of these packs are sold in UK retailers every single week. I'm also proud that my kids are wholly sick of me pointing out the packs to them, but that's a dad's duty after all. While increasing consumer convenience and reducing food waste is important, I believed there was a possibility for developing a solution which would also allow the packaging to be recycled. Working with a number of bodies across the industry, including OPRL, we developed a solution. And that solution allowed the packaging to be easily opened, securely reclosed multiple times, and then collected for recycling. That's the tray plus the lidding film. Essentially, we have converted a pack consisting of a tray and a separate lidding film into a polyester box. I'm sure you'll be aware of Tesco's traffic light categories for packaging. Well, this technology was the first film to be moved into, the first lidding film, sorry, to be moved into the green list. It was launched in 2020 by Tesco themselves and by Asda on products such as coleslaw and grapes. Recover is a further advance in that technology, and for the first time it allows virtually all lidding film to be collected for recycling, as well as offering unique levels of convenience for the consumer. We spoke earlier about a pack of bacon. Instead of using the knife, you're able to easily open the pack, remove the rashers, securely reclose it multiple times, and once finished, the whole pack is approved for curbside collection for recycling. So how does it work? Recover is produced in 2 layers of polyester. Now that can include PCR to avoid plastic tax implications. The bottom layer has been designed to permanently seal to the polyester tray. There's a cut through on the base layer so that when peeled back, the pack is cleanly opened and allowed full access to the contents. The adhesive remains on the top film, and that avoids contamination with the contents, and the rear of the lidding film remains permanently adhered to the tray, allowing the lid to be open and closed multiple times. When reclosed, it's a good closure that will keep food fresher for longer, as well as reducing the risk of contamination. Now, Recover has been designed with the food producer very much in mind. It's designed to run at existing speeds and existing temperatures. The base layer is designed to secure a highly effective weld seal to the tray. The undercut is designed for each individual pack to ensure it works efficiently with the contents. And there are options for high barrier, anti-fog, microwave cooking, and even oven cooking. Well, as you know, there's a wide range of food trays. Recover is unique, is the only technology that can be used with vacuum formed trays and ready meal trays, as well as high barrier modified atmosphere packaging. It's extremely clear and it's the thinnest of any comparable solution. It can also be fully printed to ensure that the brands retain their shelf presence. Recover presents an opportunity for a whole range of products to be packed in recyclable packaging for the very first time. For vacuum formed trays, Recover is able to offer a complete solution. Recover will work with standard base films, however we have been able to offer the thinnest barrier base layer, which works perfectly with Recover to create a high barrier, fully recyclable pack which is easy to open and securely reclose. For vacuum formed trays, Recover is a revolutionary development and one which will offer significant benefits to the food producer, the consumer and to the environment. Now, UK retailers have made a number of ambitious commitments for recyclable packaging, and until now there are a number of products that fell short of those commitments. Recover is ideally placed to offer a unique solution for those products. The challenges facing the industry are considerable. There is no silver bullet that will address all those challenges. However, Recover will make a significant contribution with increasing customer convenience, keeping food fresher for longer, increasing recycling and reducing the use of secondary packaging. Recover will reduce the amount of plastic being sent to landfill and will reduce food waste. It might even keep some rat rage victims out of A&E. Maybe. Well, I hope that this presentation was of interest, and it's a shame that we are unable to do this in person. If you'd like to contact me, I would love the opportunity to discuss this further. If you believe that Recover can offer benefits to you or your customers, please let me know and we can discuss it in much more detail. We are confident that Recover can offer practical benefits to the consumer as well as to the environment, and we look forward to working with you to see those benefits being realised. Thank you for listening.
Now a word from our sponsors Dow on flexible packaging.
Flexible packaging is the most efficient technology in terms of resource efficiency, meaning with very little material, you can achieve a lot. The second point is a barrier, and by removing or preventing the oxygen to get in, you can increase the shelf life and reduce food waste. And finally, you mentioned recyclable. For years, flexible packaging has been developed, and innovation was all about energy and resource efficiency, using as little as possible. And by doing so, the industry was combining different types of polymer that was a real challenge for recyclability. And today, we're able to achieve the same with only one type of material, meaning polyethylene, and keeping the efficiency, keeping the barrier, and having the recyclability on top of it. EU is really taking a leading role in terms of defining circular economy. And in that trajectory, EU has clearly stated by 2030, all packaging put on the market will have to be recyclable. And the question is, how do we achieve this recyclability while maintaining the efficiency of flexible packaging? Because you don't want to compromise on CO2 for recyclability. And really, through collaboration, we have demonstrated this is achievable. If you listen to the brand, they are even more bullish in terms of timing and want to achieve the same by 2025. So that's really a great engine for innovation and where collaboration is playing a key role.
Next up is Winifred Mewling, who will be discussing the Forever Green Circularity by Design guideline.
In the coming minutes, we will talk about the Forever Green Circularity by Design guideline. This Circularity by Design guideline was developed by 29 packaging experts, and it was reviewed by 114 industry leaders to secure that we have the right things included. In the run of the interview series, you will listen to 8 industry leaders who will share their insights. The 8 industry leaders will come from different stakeholders of the fiber-based value chain. You will listen to brand owners and end users. You will hear some statements coming from converters as well as from cardboard manufacturers. And of course, we also asked a few designers. We want to make sure with this guideline that we are producing packaging material that is not only recyclable, but that's also fully circular. And we can say with bottom of our heart that carton board is a fully circular packaging material that is easy to use, convenient to use, and also easy to recycle. Consumers all around Europe can fully rely and trust on the recyclability of cardboard material. I say a big thank you to all the participants who shared their insight, and I wish you great learning from the industry experts you're going to listen to now. Thank you very much.
Without a doubt, the fiber-based packaging offer a good opportunity for parts of our portfolio to move away from plastic. But we want to ensure that when we do this transition, the fiber-based packaging will be recyclable and compatible with the paper recycling streams. These guidelines identifies best practices to ensure that packaging is optimally designed with the standard recycling process, so will help us at earlier stages of the packaging innovation process. Combined with the whole package of guidelines, it will enable us to consider more complex applications as well.
Now, having a single reference document, such as this fiber-based packaging recyclability guideline, which is applicable and approved across Europe, we will achieve this desired harmonization, and this would bring us clarity not only to the users and the recyclers, but also to the producers of packaging. And this definitely will support our 2025 goals to have all our packaging either recyclable or reusable.
Stora Enso is committed to drive full circularity in packaging, and as we are aiming towards full circularity, tools like these guidelines that have been developed in wide value chain collaboration in Forever Green are very helpful for us. The guidelines will be considered in all our product development and innovation projects when we are designing products for standard recycling processes. And this then helps our teams to take circularity considerations fully into account from the very beginning of the product design phase.
The guidance, in essence, confirms our vision on how to design packaging solutions. It puts necessary focus already at the design stage on the recyclability of packaging and its recycling at scale. And lastly, the guideline provides more granular advice on how to do that. So it will not only be a support for our own designers, but it should result in an even higher quality recyclable material that is going to the right type of recycled paper mill.
So what the Forever Green guideline does is to simplify the process of choosing materials for packaging design teams. Then it also provides simple and clear guidance that enables packaging industry to increase the volume of fiber-based packaging that can be recycled over and over again. Design for recycling has traditionally been a difficult process with different guidelines and different thoughts about which materials are recyclable in which country. It has meant that designers have to consider so many different options and pieces of information, which is no longer the case.
In my opinion, the guideline offers a whole new set of tools for us. It serves as the bridge between the technical aspects of packaging and the design aspects on the other side, and hence can be a great asset when consulting our clients.
It's an excellent tool for us to design products that then we see fit for the purpose when we think about the recycling infrastructure that they should cope with. So that's a key positive requirement for the products, that they are recyclable.
Basically, this report gives us a very good basis, a founded basis for argumentation, as well as to make decisions on which ways to proceed, especially when we're talking about barriers and coatings for different boards.
So one of the complexities of paper and fiber packaging recycling is that there's no harmonized approach to what is accepted and what is not. And each of the countries has different rules on how to process the various components used next to paper. So even if we will still need to assess if a possible packaging solution will be collected and recycled in a particular country, this guideline would be a good first stop to confirm we are in the right path and what other options are available.
Nestle will incorporate the Forever Green Circularity by Design guideline first by checking and reviewing all our existing packaging. Following that, we would incorporate all the guidelines within our golden rules, and any new packaging that we develop will follow the Forever Green guidelines. Any future innovation focus would also consider this extensive document and all the recommendations given. So any fiber-based materials and fiber-based packaging would follow the prescribed design guidelines.
Well, as said, the guideline is linking the technical side of packaging, the choice of material, printing, finishing processes, with the world of marketing and design, as well as with sustainability. So for our daily tasks, the guideline will help us to ground our work on a profound knowledge and a reliable base when it comes to circularity in packaging.
Yes, we have dedicated teams working with our customers on sustainable packaging solution design. For example, we have a Center of Excellence for Packaging Sustainability, which provides services to brand owners and customers to help design sustainable packaging solutions. And in that work, we will use these guidelines to help develop and design packaging solutions that support our customers in achieving their own sustainability commitments, full recyclability and low carbon footprint.
Well, the guideline will be quite helpful in conversations with our customers. It will help our customers to understand the recyclability of the different packaging solutions that they can choose from. And it should also help them to better understand how we design our packaging. The guideline, therefore, will act as a support not only to us as packaging producers, but it will also enable brand owners to select those type of packaging that has been designed to be recycled.
At sustainability is at the core of our activity. The guideline will be a valuable tool accompanying us from the very beginning of a project. It enables us to approach our tasks holistically and supports our mission to introduce our customers to more sustainable and efficient packaging solutions.
The guidelines will help our product developers make informed design choices. So there's some detailed guidance, for example, when it comes to coatings and barrier treatments that are optimized for recyclability. And the guidelines also help designers design products to be fitting to certain recycling processes, be it standard or enhanced processes, as the guideline for the enhanced processes will follow later on. So all in all, these guidelines are much appreciated by us, and we are really happy that the value chain collaboration in Forever Green is providing useful outcomes for us and the whole industry.
Metsä Board doesn't produce packaging, but what we do, we produce packaging materials and we provide inspiration and guidance to our customers with our packaging design team and how to best use our material. Our team can use the guidelines to help customers create new, fresh fiber solutions that are designed for easy recycling from the beginning.
Of course, we are reading the guidelines carefully, and with all the new product development initiatives that we have ongoing, we have deemed that the recyclability has to be there. So in a way, it improves our success rate when we are developing new products, that they would then find a home in the recycling infrastructure going forward. So it gives us some security in investing in R&D when we know what type of products would be of third kind.
Yeah, definitely with the guidelines, it gives us a basis where we can compare our concepts and our designs to really research and say, is this a founded idea? To really quickly, as a quick look to see whether this is going to work in the recyclability, whether there's going to be potential issues, or maybe whether there's something that we're unlooked or haven't overseen that really can be incorporated into it.
We are a company with a big purpose to make sustainable living commonplace. And one of the actions we have taken to achieve this purpose is to transform the way we see waste. We want to help create a waste-free future, and we are calling for a fast transition to a circular economy, but also reducing our plastic waste by using less of this material, by elimination or replacing it with other materials. Therefore, this guideline will help us to ensure that when we use fiber-based packaging, we deliver our waste-free world vision.
Such an extensive and detailed reference guide is the desire for any professional, and it's created by leading experts in the field across Europe. So once this document is widely endorsed by the industry, it would support the packaging development and design activities within our organization. So we should be able to deliver fiber-based packaging that is suitable for recycling in all member states, as well as the wider Europe. This would ensure that our fiber-based packaging meets these requirements, and it would move us closer to achieve our 2025 goals on recyclability. In addition to that, by following these guidelines, it would make the materials easier to recycle. It would make the recycling processes more efficient, and hopefully all of these would result in better recycling outcome.
So without collaboration, the guideline wouldn't represent such a monumental step for the industry. This guideline, it represents the best of what the industry knows about designing fiber-based packaging for recycling. And together we can make a far greater contribution than we can as individual companies. And this is the value of collaboration forums like Forever Green.
I think this whole initiative, having not only the suppliers or one part of the value network participating in the development, is wonderful in that sense, that we hear the opinions and the pains and gains that each participant has in the value chain, and we are able to take those into account and take away any over engineering, but also at the same time take food waste, for example, into account, and kind of get the products to a state where they are still easy to recycle, but then they yet serve the purpose of the preserving the product inside the packaging. So I think that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have everybody participating.
Josh Remi from Ecoveritas will now give us an update on the future of UK packaging policy.
Hello everyone, my name's Josh Remi, Commercial Manager at Ecoveritas. I just want to first of all say a big thank you to Sustainable Packaging News for inviting us along here today to present on the future of UK packaging policy. In terms of the agenda, I'll just do a quick intro to myself and my business Ecoveritas. Always important to know who's speaking and where they work. We'll do a little bit of an overview just to kick us off. That's where we'll touch on the other bits of packaging policy that are out there, just so we could get the sort of the full picture of all the legislative movements that are happening around packaging. And then we'll do a deep dive into the actual extended producer responsibility reform. There's been some new updates over the last month or so, so there's quite a bit to get through there, and I'm sure it will prompt quite a few questions. And then just to finish the presentation off, just go through a bit of support on how our business can help if you feel like this is going to affect you in any way, and you've got lots of questions. So without further ado, speaking today is Josh Remi, that's me. I have over 15 years worth of experience working in extended producer responsibility. I spent most of that time as a consultant, directly supporting businesses comply with the current packaging regulations that we have in the country. Also batteries, and got involved in some other sustainable consultancy work. Over that time, helped many businesses from all different sort of sectors, mainly retail, FMCGs, but you name a sector, I've probably worked with it in the past. Going forward, in terms of support and my role at Ecoveritas, I get involved in areas of how we leverage technology to help support the ongoing changes that we're going to see. So as part of this presentation, you'll see there's quite a few changes around data and things like that we need to start looking at and looking at how we leverage technology to help support our customers and make their lives a lot easier. So In terms of Ecoveritas as a business and what we do, we are primarily packaging data specialists, and what I mean by that is that we collect a wealth of packaging data for our customers from suppliers. It's a bit of an arduous task to go out to suppliers and collect packaging metrics, so we do that for them, and as part of that service we have a good ability to quality check and quality assure that the data we're getting back from those suppliers is accurate, meets the standards that we require, and that the governing bodies require as well, and more importantly what the governing bodies will require going forward. That's the challenge at the moment, is collecting data that's going to satisfy the new regulations that are all coming into force, and we'll certainly touch on those points throughout the presentation. I won't go through all the stats of the business, you can see them there. As I say, we're packaging data specialists. We do get involved in some consultancy work around sustainability and recyclability, life cycle assessments and that sort of thing. So anything to do with packaging and sustainability, you can always give us a call, and if we can't help you, we'll certainly know people that can. Okay, so to kick us off, just important to set the scene in terms of an overview of all of the packaging policy changes and new implementations that are going on. So there are 4 key ones that in the UK that are either have just come into force or are going to come into force over the next 5 to 10 years. And so the first one, the one that we'll be touching on primarily today, is the Packaging Waste Regulations EPR reform. I won't go into that now because we're going to do many slides on that one. So that's kind of the big one, the all-encompassing one that we'll be talking about. We have a deposit return system coming in the UK as well. So that's where, the age-old, you buy a bottle from a retailer, a drinks bottle, beverage bottle, you then take it back to that same retailer or a reverse vending machine to get your deposit back. EPR and deposit return system do link quite a lot. Consistent collections is another set of regulations out for consultation. So consistent collections is where all local authorities will be required to collect the same waste streams curbside, and this will also apply to businesses as well. So at the moment, I live in the Stratford-upon-Avon area, and my waste that I get collected here will be very different to most of yours that live in different local authorities where ideally, for example, I don't get food waste collected where I live, which is crazy, but most of you probably do. So it's about aligning that and making it standardised within the UK, and that will apply to businesses as well. So all businesses will be required to segregate their waste in the same way and have those collected for environmentally sound disposal. EPR does link with this somewhat. The EPR is going to be there to support this system as well of consistent collections. Last but not least, the plastic packaging tax, which registration started on the 1st of April this year. So if you haven't looked at that already, it's probably time to get looking at the plastic packaging tax, which obligates manufacturers and importers of plastic packaging. If you import or manufacture more than 10 tonnes, then you will need to register, and you will need to start reporting data as of July, so a couple of months away for the first report, which will then be ongoing on a quarterly basis. And now plastic packaging tax could be its whole own presentation. There's certainly not enough time here to deep dive into that as well. As I said, today we'll just be focusing on EPR reform, so moving from the current, what we call the PRN system. I'll go through what PRN means if you haven't heard of that in a second, to an extended producer responsibility system. So that will be the focus of this presentation. So before we get started and we deep dive into what the reform looks like, unless you work in this industry, sometimes the acronym EPR or extended producer responsibility sort of goes over our heads. We don't actually know what it means. It's a little bit niche, I guess. I mean, until I started in the industry 15 years ago, I'd certainly never heard of it. So it's one of those things that sometimes needs defining and needs to be spelled out about what it's all about and what it's driving. So extended producer responsibility is all about putting the onus on the financial responsibility of recycling or reusing or diverting a certain waste stream away from landfill, and making the producers of that item responsible for it, whether it's through a financial mechanism or a take-back mechanism. So EPR exists in all different forms. It's not, packaging is the main one, but we have waste electricals in the UK, we have batteries in the UK. Some countries have EPR for textiles, tyres, paints, chemicals. and the list goes on. So at the moment in the UK, like I say, we have packaging, and batteries, but in the future I wouldn't be surprised if we see extended producer responsibility extend out from that into other things. I think textiles is the one that's been thrown around quite a lot at the moment, so would expect that. But yeah, it's all about putting that responsibility back on the producers to make sure that packaging in this case is diverted away from landfill, and it's either reused, recycled, or something like that. So that's it. That's what it's all about. So why are we looking at? I mean, we've had a system in place for the last 20 odd years for packaging compliance, producer responsibility. So why now are we seeing all this reform? Why is the system changing? So there's a whole host of reasons. As I said just then, the current system started in 1997, so it's over 20 years old, and the world is a very different place compared to the 90s. For example, online retail now is completely different to how it was in the 90s. Waste collection, waste reprocessing, waste sorting, etc., recyclability, it's all completely different 2 decades on. So big need to change and revamp the system for a modern world that we live in. So the first major change of extended producer responsibility is this shift from what we call a PRN system, or packaging waste recovery note system, to a full net cost of recycling system. Now, the PRN system, what it's designed to do is it's essentially a certificate of evidence that's generated by accredited reprocessors. Now, for example, an accredited reprocessor will collect 100 tons worth of paper waste. They will then reprocess it or recycle it. And then once that's done, they will create a certificate of evidence, the certificate of evidence being the PRN itself. And that PRN is then placed onto an open market for producers to purchase to offset their obligation. Now, I often make the comparison to carbon offsetting here because I think it's quite an easy thing, or a relatable thing for people to wrap their heads around. So, carbon offsetting is about you have a carbon footprint as a business, and then you offset that by planting trees or other carbon offsetting initiatives. So at the end, you become carbon neutral. It's the same sort of principle here. You have a packaging footprint, or what is known as a packaging obligation. That's then offset by purchasing enough PRN evidence to offset the equivalent amount of packaging tonnage in your footprint. So if you had 100 tons of packaging obligation, you'd have to procure 100 tons worth of PRN evidence to offset that. And that PRN money is used to invest in the reprocessing. So it covers that reprocessing part, helps to grow the reprocessing infrastructure in the UK. Now going forward, a big part of EPR is to cover more than just that portion of reprocessing. It's to cover the whole picture, which you can see here in this diagram. So that's the collections, whether that's mainly at curbside, local authorities, the waste sorting, litter management, consumer campaigns to make them more aware of recycling, recyclability and litter, and managing all sorts of things like that. A lot more financial contributions needed. To put it into context, the current PRN system, producers contribute about 300 million in terms of revenue towards that system every year. Going forwards with EPR, it's going to look more like 1.7 billion as per the last consultation response. So a big shift in financial contributions required from producers, and very important to be aware of that. This shift to full net cost of recycling is going to result in producers being required to pay quite a bit more money towards their packaging obligation. So really key point to take away there. So how does the system look as part of a full net cost system compared to how we've been doing things for the last 20 years? So over the last 20 years, I mentioned there's been a PRN system that covers the reprocessing, and mainly that's been covered by producers that comply directly with the Environment Agency, but more commonly through what's known as compliance schemes. So compliance schemes are essentially procurement operations. They buy PRNs in bulk, and doing so, they, arguably they can get a better price for those. It helps to keep the costs down, and businesses just to prefer to outsource that procuring of PRNs to a third party, as it makes their lives easier. So that's compliance schemes' roles in the old system. What they've come up with in the new one, as per the latest consultation response, is to have sort of a hybrid system in that compliance schemes still retain their role of covering the reprocessing element where they buy packaging, export, recovery note. You can generate these from exporting material as well. So they'll retain that role, and producers will still supply data into them as they have done. I imagine it will look very different. We'll go on to more about that in a second, but they'll still report data into them. But they're also running alongside compliance schemes will be a central body called a scheme administrator, and they will be responsible for a whole myriad of things. So strategic and ops planning of the system, calculating the fees for the rest of the full net cost picture, managing the payments to local authorities, managing and funding the consumer campaigns, anti-litter campaigns, that sort of thing, providing data support and tools for producers, and preparing data reports to industry and to the government. So this scheme administrator hasn't been appointed yet. That will be done over the next year. There will be a tender out to do that. It will be a public body. And yeah, so there's no scheme administrator appointed yet, but that will be their responsibility. So producers will have to work with compliance schemes and with the scheme administrators, paying into both, reporting data into both. Compliance schemes will be responsible for mainly the business waste arising from businesses, so think backdoor waste, that sort of thing, where the scheme administrators will be responsible for more of the household waste side of things, and local authority collections. Yeah, so there's quite a change, a big change in system. Not sure quite how it's all going to work yet. There's still a lot to be debated. There's going to be another consultation on how the future PRN system looks compared to now, because it definitely needs to change. We'll know more about the scheme administrator as and when. So still a lot to be ironed out, but as a high-level picture, this is how the new system will look. I appreciate this is a diagram with arrows going everywhere. Any questions on that, you can always call us or email us at any time. So I mentioned there'll be another consultation on the actual PRN system itself. It definitely needs improvement. There's been some damning reports in the past. The volatility I mentioned, fraud within the system, transparency, all that needs to be reviewed. Even the amount of reporting that's done by compliance schemes and the reprocessors themselves really needs some evaluation and ironing out. So there's a lot to be done on the PRN system. So it's not long until the deadline for the consultation that's been put out there by DEFRA for responses is the 21st of May. So not long at all. And then it'll be reviewed again in 2026, 2027. So that's actually something I forgot to mention on the last slide, is that this hybrid PRN system running alongside the rest of the full net costs managed by the scheme administrator will be reviewed in 2026, 2027 to see if it's still appropriate. Originally, DEFRA was looking at moving to just a scheme administrator managing all the costs, and the PRNs would be abolished, but now they've decided to keep the PRNs for a bit longer. So it may be that they look at going back to that one system without the PRNs covering the reprocessing. So we'll see. In terms of the frequency of data reporting, it'll have to be more often. I think it's once a quarter at the moment, so we'll be looking at higher volumes of reporting, so that producers and the industry have a lot more data to work with, and the costs are easier to predict and managed by producers. Reduced timescales over which PRNs can be traded from annually to monthly or quarterly, so really important point. Also looking at the carryover, which is kind of key. There's carryover of PRN, so it's all done on a calendar year, and PRNs are ideally purchased in the same calendar year are used for that same calendar year obligation. Going forward, they're looking at extending the carryover. So at the moment, you can carry over PRNs purchased in December, January. They're looking to extend that, so effectively turning the year into 13 months rather than 12. They're looking at changing that to 14 or maybe more, just to take a bit more pressure off, give a bit more leeway in terms of PRN, so there's no mad panic at the end of the calendar years to buy enough PRNs to ensure compliance, that sort of thing. Must interface with the deposit return system as well, as I mentioned earlier. These two will cross over somewhat, so making sure that beverage bottles aren't used for PRN. So plastic beverage bottles, for example, won't be able to raise PRNs from them, and that sort of thing. Just making sure that data split, because the deposit return system will take care of beverage containers, so we don't want to be double counting those in terms of extended producer responsibility numbers. Also be operator competency tests for compliance schemes. So there is somewhat of a competency test at the moment, but they're looking at making those a bit more rigorous, doing a bit more due diligence, and having the compliance schemes themselves and the reprocessors do a bit more due diligence on about how they operate, who they trade with, how the PRNs are generated and procured, and that sort of thing. So yeah, big deep dive and look into the PRN system as a whole. It's not just carrying on it in its current guise. There will be changes, and it will be reviewed imminently. So moving on to another important point, the thresholds are changing for the regulations. The current threshold is for businesses is £2 million turnover and handling 50 or more tonnes of packaging that remains within the UK. So if you're a business that meets those two thresholds, you must meet both, by the way, then you have data reporting and obligation costs responsibility. So you have to report data, you have to pay your obligation fees. That's how it is. With new EPR, it'll be changing somewhat. You'll still have the 2 million turnover and 50 tonne de minimis that will require you to report data, and it will require you to pay fees. But they are introducing another threshold, which is 1 million turnover and 25 tonnes of packaging. And that will require those businesses to just report data. So no cost responsibility for the lower threshold, but there will be a data reporting requirement. And this is where you'll start to take on some admin burden of gathering the data, reporting it, making sure it's accurate. So even though there's no cost, there will be the cost in terms of time and administration of gathering and producing that data. So really important if you do fall below the 2 million and 50, but you meet that 1 million and 25 tonnes, that you start to look at how you're going to gather data for your product portfolio around packaging metrics. And we'll go into the type of packaging data you'll need to collect shortly. So in terms of the next sort of real big point and big change for EPR from the current system is the change in who's classed as a producer. In the current system, we use something called shared producer responsibility, and what that means is that each business that touches packaging has to pay for a certain percentage of it at its end of life. So the top line is the current split of responsibility throughout the supply chain. So you've got raw material manufacturers, which are paper mills, steel mills. We've got converters, which are effectively packaging manufacturers, people or businesses converting raw material into a recognisable item of packaging. We've got packer fillers, where most businesses come into it. That's putting packaging around a product, covers all levels, primary, secondary and transit, by the way. Then we've got sellers, which is a company that supplies packaging to an end user, or you're supplying packaging to someone who's going to remove it, not just selling packaging. Not to be confused, your customer has to be throwing the packaging away to be obligated as a seller. And then we have a rolled up obligation for imports. So if you import packaging, then you have to think about what state it arrived in the UK and the activities that came before that. I won't go into too much detail on that. I can probably spend about half an hour on that alone. But that's the current system. The idea is to split the obligation throughout the supply chain. You're only obligated depending on what activity you perform on the packaging, and you pay a certain chunk depending on what that activity is. New EPR, they are shifting the responsibility to what is known as single point of compliance, which is a huge change. Now, the reason they're doing this is that they want one company to be the sole producer, and that sole producer should be the people that have the most control over the packaging used and the material choices. So you can see that at the bottom, those single points of compliance are brand owners, importers, online marketplaces, fillers of unbranded packaging, and suppliers of unfilled to exempt SMEs. Now, I'll do a bit more of a deep dive into those. The actual ones in the consultation are a little bit different, and this is taken straight from that. So brand owners, importers, distributors, online marketplaces, sellers, and service providers. And they all have a little bit of different types of obligations. So I'll go through them one by one. Brand owner is the big one. So brand owners will be the single point of compliance if your brand is on a packaging when it goes onto the market. So it's easily identifiable brand. Brand owners is the obvious one because the brand owner is who they argue most will have the biggest influence over the material usage in terms of packaging. So if a brand isn't clear, it will be the packer filler, i.e. the company adding packaging, that will take that responsibility. Brand owners will have an obligation for costs and data reporting. Importers, so very much in the same guise as it is now. If you're importing packaging in some way to the UK and you are the ones responsible for bringing it here and you hold first legal title, you will have a obligation here. Important to note that it's filled packaging, so finished goods ready to go. If you import those, then you will have cost and reporting responsibilities. Some nuances around if you're importing unfilled packaging, then you'll have an obligation, or it's sold to unobligated companies. So there's a bit of nuance to be ironed out there in terms of how do you identify that your customers are unobligated or they're below the threshold of the regulations, therefore you need to pick it up. So it's a bit convoluted there, but I'm sure there'll be more detail about how businesses are expected to do that going forward. And the same goes for distributors. If you're selling unfilled packaging to producers that are under the threshold, you'll have to pick up the costs and reporting side of things. How do you determine that your client is under the de minimis? We'll wait for guidelines on that. A real new one is online marketplaces. So we're looking at Amazon Marketplace, Etsy, eBay, that sort of thing. As I said, the original regulations created in the 90s didn't really consider online marketplaces. So it's a little bit grey in the current regulations, whereas in these ones it will be ironclad as to who needs to report. So this will be for sales from UK-based online sales of filled packaging from people outside the UK. So if you're selling something, or a business is selling something from France to a UK customer, then they'll be responsible. eBay, Amazon, or something like that will be responsible for picking up that tonnage. So online marketplace is a bit of a niche one. Definitely one that needs picking up. A lot of packaging tonnage getting missed at the moment in the current regulations and needs to be captured in EPR reform. Again, they'll have the costs of reporting and data. Then we've got sellers. So sellers will effectively be retailers, so selling filled packaging to end users or consumers or people that are going to remove it. You'll note there that there's no cost and reporting tick. So sellers won't actually have obligation costs here for things that aren't their own brand. Very important to note, but there will be reporting requirements. I'll just go into that in a second. Next is service providers. So service providers are people like Chet, Palletcon, that are leasing out packaging for use. I guess you call them lessors. So lessors will lease out the packaging for people to use. Because they're the owner, they have to pick it up. It's a kind of an ownership thing. If you're leasing packaging yourself and you don't own it, then that wouldn't be your responsibility. So they're the single points of compliance. Important to note that importers, distributors, online marketplaces, sellers and service providers will have nation-specific reporting requirements. So we'll have to report data and volumes sold to each devolved administration. So England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. So just another added layer of data complexity there that will be required going forward. But again, another key takeaway is identifying where you fit into these obligated producers. Are you a brand owner, importer, distributor, online marketplace, seller, or service provider? You'll need to figure out where you fit into that. So in terms of data requirements, I think it goes without saying that the data for EPR will be a lot more granular than the current regulations. The current regulations require you to submit high-level material tonnage, so it covers paper, glass, aluminium, steel, plastic and wood. Going forward, you'll see all the data points on the right-hand side of the slide here, but packaging classed as commonly placed in street bins, polymer information, which is something that's not been required before, the packaging function, which layer is it, primary, secondary, transit. Definitions will need to be identified there because primary and secondary and transit means different things for different businesses. Which waste stream is it? Is it arising from businesses? Is it household? Is it food or non-food, contact packaging, hazardous, silicone? component formats, what type of packaging is it? Is it a tray? Is it film? Is it a roll? Is it tissue? What colour is it? Black plastic will be a focus, I'm sure. And then recycling disruptors as well. So carbon black, varnish, or enablers like detectable ink and that sort of thing. So the data points are going to be a lot more granular, and they're sort of the high level ones. But I mean, for certain, there's going to be colour, polymer levels, that sort of thing. Maybe even recycled content will creep into this as well, as it's part of the plastic tax. So as I mentioned, there'll be nation required reporting for some of the single points of compliance. Submissions will start from December 2024, then every July. So we're looking at biannual data submissions. At the moment, it's just an annual exercise that has to be done by April, but going forward it will be a biannual exercise most likely, and estimates will be acceptable for secondary and transit packaging but not primary packaging. So data accuracy in the past has been governed by something called accurate as reasonably possible, which means you can do a myriad of things like extrapolation or estimation on the weights, whereas going forward that won't be acceptable. You'll have to have accurate weights for 100% of your portfolio, which is a big change. So the other huge change that goes alongside data requirements is the introduction of a modulated fee system. So this is all about incentivizing the use of more recyclable material. In the current regulations, there's no incentive at all to use more recyclable packaging. It simply obligates you depending on the tonnage of a certain material. What that material has little bearing outside of whether it's paper, plastic, glass, aluminium, steel, etc. So the introduction of a modulated fee system will see good performers in terms of using recyclable material be incentivized and rewarded, and it will see bad performers in terms of businesses using what's deemed to be non-recyclable packaging penalized. A lot of countries in Europe with their own packaging EPR systems are introducing modulated fee setups, so it's only natural that the UK would follow and introduce this as well. And in the spirit of extended producer responsibility, incentivizing the use of more recyclable material is definitely something that we want to see. So this is a really good change, but it will mean that, again, the data will be required at a more granular level to determine whether it's recyclable or not. Now, what packaging is considered recyclable or not, and what that modulated fee system looks like, we don't know. The cost will vary. The approach is not clear. The scheme administrator will decide on how this system is to be set up and the fees, how the fees are separated. This system will not start in 2024. This will start in 2025. EPR officially starts in 2024. It will run a year of normal data reporting with maybe an extra material for fibre-based composites. But in 2025, we will see a modulated fee system introduced, and then producers will be incentivized to switch to more recyclable packaging, a cost incentive, that is. A really key part, another really key takeaway is this modulated fee system. Once more information on this is released, it'll be really interesting to see how they're going to implement it, what material streams are going to be considered recyclable and which are not. It'll be really fascinating reading, I'm sure. But yeah, at the moment we don't know too much other than that this system is going to be introduced in 2025. So another important change is the introduction of a mandatory labelling scheme, which actually has no threshold. DEFRA has agreed with RAP for the use of the Recycled Now mark on packaging, and producers will be required to label packaging using this Recycled Now mark and use the relevant wording, which is simply recycle or do not recycle on that packaging. And it will apply to all packaging types apart from plastic films and flexibles. And this will be introduced on the 31st of March 2026. Plastic films and flexibles will then be introduced to the labelling requirements by the 31st of March 2027, so the following year. So they need a bit more time to do the assessments and investigations on how to bring plastic films and flexibles into recyclability decisions, and there'll be guidance issued along the way by DEFRA. But just something to keep in mind on the horizon in 2026, that there will be mandatory labelling requirements using this Recycle Now mark. So that brings us to the end of my presentation and a bit of a deep dive into extended producer responsibility. I could honestly talk for a lot longer. There's a lot more points to go through. You've got recycling targets, payments, timelines. What I have done is issued some more information in the form of an appendices at the end of this slide deck that you can peruse in your own time. And I'm sure the guys at Sustainable Packaging News will send that round for you. Just before I sign off, quick overview of the services that we provide. I won't go into them, but in terms of packaging compliance and packaging data, we kind of do it all. As I mentioned at the start, workshops, cost impact assessments on how the new regulations will affect you financially. Data collection's our game. We do that at scale. Collecting evidence for the plastic packaging tax, recycle content evidence, doing the actual reporting and submissions, and creating methodologies and data collection methodologies for our clients is what we do. If any of those are interest, if anything in the presentation you would like to discuss further, then please don't hesitate to contact myself or the team at Ecoveritas. We're all more than happy to help. Thank you for listening. I hope that was useful and informative. I look forward to speaking to some of you later. Many thanks. Bye.
Let's now hear from Christophe Dujardin and Christian Dollner on the sustainability actions within the company KURZ.
Hello, and a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Christophe Dujardin, and together with my colleague Christian Dollner, I will give you a very short overview of the sustainability actions of the company KURZ.
Hello, also from my side. My name is Christian Dollner, and I also give you a warm welcome and want to show you, first of all, the company KURZ. What is the company KURZ, or who we are? So the company KURZ is a family-run business since over 120 years in the 5th generation. We have manufacturing sites in the USA, in Asia, and also in Europe. We have over 5,000 employees, and we have subsidiaries in over 30 countries all over the world. Christoph, show us more regarding sustainability at the company KURZ.
Well, if we talk about sustainability at the company KURZ, we first have to look at our products. If we look at the product scope we used to have at the company KURZ, it was mainly based on quality and innovation. Nowadays, we definitely have to include sustainability, because sustainability has become a very important part of our product scopes. This is expected by the industry, but also by the end user. And that is why we cannot do anything else than to introduce sustainability in our product scope. If we look how we can implement sustainability in product scope, but also in manufacturing process and application processes, we base our sustainability approach on the 4R strategy. The 4 R's are reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover. Based on those 4R principles, we started 2 new programs. The first program is based on reducing. So we are not only reducing the amount of energy used in our production processes, but we will also reduce in the future, and we already started, the thickness of the carrier. So the carrier is actually our transportation for the lacquers that we will apply on end products. So we will start the slim program. We will reduce the thickness of that carrier. The second program we already started is to recycle that carrier. So we started to take back carrier material from our partners in the industry and recycle it to a new plastic product that can be used to produce new plastic parts. But my colleague Christian will give you some more information about the complete mission of sustainability at the company KURZ.
So, first of all, we have the end product, then the application process, the manufacturing process, and last but not least, the transfer carrier. So, let me take you to our end product. First of all, there remains no plastic on the final product. And there we transfer different layers. So you can see the layout of our transfer product. The layout is, first of all, a carrier, which is the transportation for the lacquer package. But the transfer carrier does not remain on the final product. And then you have the release layer, a protective layer, a metallization. It is aluminum, and an adhesive layer. The adhesive layer is for sticking onto the substrate. And all of these layers have a total thickness of 1.5 to 3 grams per square meter. This means it is a thickness of 1.5 to 3 microns. So I already told you that there does not remain plastic on the packaging, on the substrate, on the final product. The plastic, the carrier, will be removed during the process. And I told you that we have an aluminum layer, and this aluminum layer has a thickness of 0.02 microns. This is 6,000 times thinner than a human hair. You can see afterwards a video where we compare our layer with a coffee capsule. On this slide, you can see the comparison between different products in the industry. We have the beverage carton, which is embellished with different embellishments. So you have a metallic ink, which has a thickness of 0.2 microns. You can also use metallized paper with a thickness of 0.1 micron. And the KURZ transfer product does only have a thickness of 0.02 microns. But Christoph, can you show us more?
Yes. So one of the goals today during this presentation is to show you how our embellishment products and application processes influence the recycling process of end products. So as everybody knows, we want to have a level of recycling who is the highest possible. So we want to keep a raw material as long as possible in the highest quality level possible. So if we look at paper packaging or paper labels embellished with our products and our application processes, we will prove you today and show you over certificates that we can send you individually after the presentation, that our embellishment products and embellishment processes do not interfere with the current sorting, recycling, de-inking, and composting processes in place. So if you look at embellishment with hot stamping, cold transfer finish, or digital embellishment, even at a very high coverage, over 50% of the end product, with the current sorting processes, we do not interfere those processes. That means the quality reached out of sorting, even with embellishments up to 50% or higher, will not interfere the current sorting processes. Once a product is correctly sorted, you can only start recycle it properly. And also with very high coverages with our embellishment products, you will not interfere the current recycling processes, not for paper material, cardboard, but also not plastic. If we look at plastic tubes, decorated up to 70%, you will not interfere the recycling process. That means your high quality plastic product will remain in the same loop as possible without any embellishment with our technologies and products. The next step in recycling is de-inking. In a lot of countries here in Western Europe, we started to separate lacquers and inks from paper material, so that that paper material stays in the highest loop possible of raw material. We also have certificates that prove that our embellishment products and lacquers can be de-inked in that process. Besides sorting, recycling, and de-inking, one very important aspect is compostability. Not everywhere in the world end products are sorted and recycled. That is why we also wanted to find out if product embellished with our products and technologies do interfere the composting process. Also for this, we have certificates that prove that a biodegradable product embellished with our products do not interfere the composting process of that end product. And this is very important. As I mentioned, after this presentation, you will be able to contact us and we will send you studies and certificates that prove what I and my colleague Christian are telling you today. Our mission stays the same. End product, application process, manufacturing process, and finally, but not least, the transfer carrier. I'll give the word back to my colleague Christian to tell you a little bit more about the carrier that we use to transfer our lacquers to an end product.
In the past, the PET carrier remained in the industrial waste and was a high quality source for energy in energy consumption industries. But don't look back. We are looking forward into the future. Or today, we are developing a complete process for recycling the KURZ transfer carrier waste. So we want to close the loop. We are taking back our PET carriers and our industrial partners and then bring it back to our recycling facility. And we are re-engineering the properties of the material. And finally, we will have a recycled PET recyclate, which can be used for high quality products with a wide range of properties.
So if we look at sustainability, we have to be honest with ourselves. We are at the beginning of a very long journey. A journey who will definitely not turn into a destination. Processes will continue to change, and this is up to you to inform us and up to us to inform you what is possible to make more sustainable products and better sustainable application processes. So help us make that journey. We already started a lot of programs in that direction, and the company KURZ is willing to make it a high priority in our complete company program. On different website pages of the company, you will be able to find exact detailed information related to sustainability actions at the company KURZ in different brochures, but don't hesitate to contact me, my colleague, but also other members of the company KURZ in order to know more about sustainability actions in the company. On my side, I have to thank you for your time and availability, and I give the last time the word to my colleague Christian.
So also from me, thank you for watching this video and get in contact with us regarding sustainability if you want to have further information or you want to see the certificates Christoph already mentioned. So finally, I want to thank you once more. Stay healthy and have a good time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Emma Wilkinson will now give an overview on EPR for packaging.
Good morning or afternoon, everyone listening, depending on where you are and what time you're listening to this. And welcome to my portion of the Sustainable Packaging News Recyclable Packaging Conference. So my name is Emma Wilkinson and I am part of the team at Comply Direct, and my presentation today should be giving an overview of the recent Extended Producer Responsibility, or EPR, consultation for packaging response and the key decisions that have been made. I'd like to thank you all for listening today, and would like to thank Sustainable Packaging News for allowing me to share this information with you. So here's a lovely picture of me, and I am the Regulatory Affairs Coordinator at Comply Direct. So at Comply Direct, we are an environmental consultancy specialising in environmental compliance, sustainability consulting and waste management. Our company is entering our 17th year as a producer compliance scheme formed in 2005 by our chairman, Gareth Roberts. And we're proud to be the only compliance scheme in the UK to have both the Customer Service Excellence Award and the Investors in People Gold Award. Our ambition is to offer so much more and become a complete sustainability partner to the wonderful businesses that put their trust in us. We now stand at over 1,700 scheme members and offer a 360-degree service range covering all aspects of environmental compliance. Our service range is split into 3 sections, which you can see on screen. In the green, we have environmental compliance, which includes packaging, WEEE, factory and international compliance and producer responsibility. And in purple, we have our consultancy range, which, as our member base grew, we developed our service range to support this. We offer many specialist services to help companies achieve their sustainability goals across carbon, packaging recyclability, social and environmental management, as listed on the slide here, including examples such as ESOS, SECR, carbon management, ESG, plastic tax and EPR support, and packaging optimization. And finally, we have in orange the waste management services. We offer WEEE collections and waste optimization, including zero waste to landfill. You can see on screen the agenda for today. I'll be taking you through a refresher of the producer responsibility and the EPR system, an overview of the recent consultation on EPR, the key decisions in the response that was provided by DEFRA, and the next steps now following the response. Before we start, I would like to point out that all the following information on the EPR for packaging was gathered from DEFRA's EPR consultation document and the response document, and is correct as of the time of writing, which was the 5th of May 2022. We do expect follow-up information and development of legislation from DEFRA on EPR and how it will operate, which may include some amendments or revisions to the information published in the 26th of March 2022 EPR consultation response document. So, what is producer responsibility and what is extended producer responsibility? So, producer responsibility is the concept of businesses that place packaging on the UK market, making a contribution towards the cost of recycling and disposal of this material. UK businesses with a turnover of £2 million and 50 tonnes of packaging handled per calendar year must currently comply to the producer responsibility obligations in brackets packaging waste close brackets regulations 2007, which were originally launched in 1997. As part of the Resources and Waste Strategy released in late 2018 that you can see in the bottom right, the UK government has committed to work towards the objectives of the EU's circular economy package and to reform the producer responsibility system for packaging waste that we have in the UK. The circular economy package introduces a revised legislative framework identifying steps for the reduction of waste and establishing an ambitious and credible long-term path for waste management and recycling. So extended producer responsibility is one part of this, which introduces a further obligation for the businesses placing material on the market to pay the full net costs of the collection, sorting, recycling and disposal of packaging waste. The current producer responsibility system for packaging has operated, as we said, since 1997, but it has never covered the full costs of disposing and recycling of packaging waste. About 10 to 20% of the costs are funded by producers under the current system through the purchase of PRNs. So extended producer responsibility aims to transfer the responsibility of the full net cost of managing packaging waste from the taxpayers and councils to the packaging producers, demonstrating a shift from municipalities upstream up to the producers, which will incentivise reduction in packaging use and the choice of packaging which is easiest to recycle, as producers have responsibility for the cost of their packaging under the EPR system throughout its life cycle. These aims are in line with government's ambitious goals to protect our climate, drive green growth and drive down unnecessary waste. DEFRA, the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, have had 2 consultations on implementing an EPR system for packaging in the UK, first in 2019 and more recently in spring 2021. In the consultations, they presented a series of proposals on how EPR for packaging system would operate to gather feedback from stakeholders on whether they agreed or disagreed with what was put forward. Since that most recent consultation in spring 2021, the government have been analysing the responses and forming decisions on how EPR will work in the UK. And DEFRA have recently published their consultation response, which was long awaited. They published this on the 26th of March 2022, which outlines these decisions, which I will be taking you through today. So a series of decisions have been made on how EPR will operate in the UK, which fit into these 5 areas shown on the screen. So these categories are how the EPR system will operate, firstly, which includes decisions made on timeframes of implementation, the household and business waste split, scheme administration as well. Secondly, we have the obligated parties, which includes decisions made on the types of producers obligated under EPR. Thirdly, we have data reporting, including the data required in the submissions and the frequency of data submissions. Fourthly, we've got the costs, which includes decisions on how the payments will work and the modulated fee system. And finally, we have recycling of packaging of some specific requirements of the EPR system, including labelling, fibre-based composite cups, plastic films, and compostable and biodegradable packaging. First, let's take a look at how the system will actually operate. So some key headline decisions have been made, including some changes since what was proposed in the last consultation. Firstly, EPR is to be implemented in a phased manner from 2024. So to confirm, this means that government does not intend to introduce EPR in 2023 as was originally proposed. This is great from a producer perspective, as it allows more time to prepare for these changes. The EPR system will be focused on household packaging waste and packaging in street bins managed by local authorities only. And business waste will not be included in the EPR system. So you might be thinking here, what exactly is the difference between household and business waste? You can see the definitions of these two types of waste, packaging waste on screen. We've got household and business packaging waste. So household packaging waste is packaging waste predominantly generated by households, but could also be generated from organisations and small businesses, which is collected by municipalities. This packaging is usually primary or sales packaging around products disposed of by the consumer, but may also include some secondary packaging too. Then business packaging waste is commercial or industrially generated packaging waste that is commercially collected from businesses and other organisations that pay for the collection of their waste. This waste is comprised generally of transport packaging used and discarded of in the supply chain, but other levels too if they are discarded of by businesses. So back to where we were on the slide before previous. So in points 2 and 3, we can see EPR will be focused on household packaging waste and packaging in street bins managed by local authorities only, so that are collected and managed by municipalities. And then in point 3, business waste that is collected commercially will not be included in the EPR system. So to elaborate a bit on this, business waste was originally proposed to be included in EPR, but this has been deemed too complex to operate alongside household packaging waste within the same system by DEFRA, noting that focusing on household packaging waste only will simplify and de-risk that initial delivery of the EPR system. In the response document, DEFRA also noted that from responses to their questions, there was no immediate viable solutions for implementing a system and payments for business packaging waste from 2024 when they want to implement EPR. So an interim solution will be taken forward. And this interim solution will be the PRN system, which is to be continued until at least 2026 or 2027 for that business packaging waste. So this interim solution will be based on the current PRN system, which involves the purchase of packaging recovery notes, referred to as PRNs, or packaging export recovery notes, referred to as PERNs, to demonstrate recycling obligations have been met and supported investment in reprocessing business packaging waste. DEFRA have recognised the limitations of the current PRN system, which has remained relatively unchanged since its implementation in 1997, when we consumed goods and used packaging much differently to how we do today, 25 years later. They've launched a consultation seeking views on reforming the system to improve it and to make it more fit for purpose as an interim solution. DEFRA outlined that they will establish a task force with the involvement of producers, local authorities and the waste sector to continue to improve data and develop and review options for a system for this business packaging waste and the financial contribution to processing it ahead of a review in 2026 or 2027. So the PRN system will be the only requirement for business waste in the interim. However, for household packaging, both the PRN system and the EPR system will run alongside each other. The PRN system will gather that same 10 to 20% of costs funding reprocessing of packaging waste, with the EPR and its modulated fee structure taking this up to producers funding 100% of waste management costs. To visualise how these systems will work alongside each other, we can look at the table on screen. The two waste streams, household and business packaging, can be seen on the left. We can see that the PRN system, shaded in purple, will continue until at least 2026 for both, with the EPR system being implemented in a phased manner from 2024 for household packaging only in that green shade there. This will obligate producers to pay the full net cost of the collection, sorting, recycling and disposal of household packaging waste. DEFRA stated that they will review the system in 2026 after 2 years of operations shown to the right of the diagram. Continuing on from the last slide then, on how the EPR system will generally operate, there have been a few more key decisions made by DEFRA. So the obligated de minimis remains at £2 million turnover and 50 tonnes of packaging handled per calendar year to fund the disposal costs, as is the threshold under the current system. But a new lower threshold will be introduced for reporting purposes at £1 million turnover and 25 tonnes of packaging handled per calendar year. Producers obligated with this threshold will not be obligated to pay fees to cover disposal costs. It is only to report packaging data, and DEFRA will maintain this approach until at least 2026, when they will review it whilst reviewing the whole system. The purpose of this measure is to reduce the financial burden on small producers while still actively bringing them into the system and increasing their awareness of the impacts of their packaging. And then a key difference in the EPR system compared to the PRN system is that the allocation method, or the small producer method, whereby businesses with a turnover below £5 million can use their turnover to determine their obligation, rather than this being based on the tonnages of actual packaging handled. And this method will not be included in the EPR system, which is a key change. DEFRA explained their decision, noting that the small producer method is not consistent with the polluter pays principle and would not allow for fees to be modulated based on their packaging design. And finally, in point 8, the scheme administrator will likely be appointed from the public sector. So HM Treasury have advised DEFRA that the scheme administrator is likely to be classified to the public sector due to the activities that it is carrying out and the expected level of control by the public sector. DEFRA have noted that there will be opportunities for the private sector to deliver some of its functions, and that they will engage with producers and other stakeholders as they develop these proposals. And the timeframes of this scheme administration mobilisation can be seen at the bottom. DEFRA noted that they're committed to mobilising the scheme administrator in 2023 and for it to be fully operational in 2024. Now we'll move on to the obligated parties. So under the EPR system, brand owners and importers will be the main point of compliance, the definitions of which we can see on screen. So brand owners are businesses who either put goods into packaging or have goods put into packaging and place those goods on the UK market under their brand name. And importers are businesses who are responsible for the import of filled packaging into the UK for sale. Where the importer is not based in the UK, it will be the first UK-based owner of the packaging who takes this obligation. As you can see, the brand owner will sit generally with the pack filler of packaging, what we know under the current regulations. And this is because DEFRA believe that the brand owners generally will have the most influence over the packaging used around products. Additionally, brand owners will have access to detailed information on the packaging that is used, making reporting obligations less complicated through the supply chain. And importers, being the first business to bring overseas packaging into the UK, may have to fill this role in their place if the brand owner is based overseas. DEFRA do recognise that sellers will have some influence over the packaging that is used on the products they sell, but brand owners will generally have greater influence. And sellers are defined as businesses in the UK who sell any filled packaging to the end user. This includes all type of packaging, so could be, for example, supermarkets in relation to primary packaging, or manufacturers in relation to secondary or transit packaging used in the supply chain. It is yet to be confirmed the exact obligation of brand owners and importers under the EPR system, and DEFRA pointed out that they will ensure clarity of the obligations in the lead up to the new regulations coming into force. DEFRA did also outline that brand owners and importers will be obligated in addition to other producers, as proposed in the original consultation document, such as distributors and online marketplaces, which we can see on screen. To minimise the impact of small businesses, DEFRA outlined their decision on obligating manufacturers and importers of unfilled packaging that is sold to businesses below the disposal cost threshold of £2 million turnover and 50 tonnes of packaging handled per calendar year. This obligated producer can be defined as a distributor, for which the definition can be seen there on screen, and can be any manufacturer, wholesaler, distributor or importer of unfilled packaging selling directly to any unobligated producers. This will result in more packaging being reported in the system and the cost being shared more fairly among producers, whilst protecting the smallest businesses from burdensome reporting and financial obligations. Then moving on to online marketplaces. These can be defined as businesses in the UK who operate an internet sales platform or website through which persons overseas, other than the operator, can offer filled packaging for sale in the UK. So it is referring to the operator of this marketplace there. The online marketplace will be obligated for filled packaging sold via their platforms in the UK by businesses outside the UK. So businesses operating the platform will be the obligated party for packaging sold by businesses outside of the UK into the UK. However, DEFRA will not obligate online marketplaces in relation to packaging sold in the UK via their platforms by businesses that are also based in the UK, so they're not obligated. And to reiterate, DEFRA are yet to release more specific guidance on what the obligations of these producers will look like, and have noted that they will ensure clarity is provided in the lead up to the new regulations coming into force. However, in the meantime, if your business looks to be obligated under any of the brand owner, importer, distributor or online marketplace producer types, it can be expected that your business will be obligated to cover the disposal costs of your packaging under the EPR system. And then moving on to data reporting requirements. As a reminder, under the current PRN system, obligated producers must report annually on the tonnages of packaging handled during the previous calendar year, within a set of packaging activities and material types. These form the 6 packaging data tables that are reported to the Environment Agency. But under the EPR system, we can expect more detailed packaging data reporting. In 2023, producers are required to report by material category as we do currently, and the fees will be calculated by apportionating disposal costs to each material category. In 2024, recyclability assessments will be introduced, which we will touch on the likely data requirements of on the next slide. So that in 2025, modulated fees based on packaging recyclability can commence. One other thing to point out first, though, is that packaging data reporting will be required twice per year compared to the singular reporting requirement per year under the current system. Data reporting will be required in October and April of each year, with each data submission covering a 6-month period. Producers will have 3 months to collate and report this data. And so, for example, the October deadline would require data from the first 6 months of the calendar year, which is January through to the end of June, which would then provide 3 months from July to September to collate and report this data in October. It's currently unclear exactly when this biannual reporting will commence. It will be in place in 2024 for the recyclability assessments to commence, but whether a form of biannual reporting will be introduced in 2023, alongside the data reporting statutory instrument that's being developed this year, that wasn't actually explicitly confirmed in the consultation document, so we can expect clarity to be provided by DEFRA in the coming months on this. And then finally, in that last point there, some producers will also need to annually report in which part of the UK their packaging is placed on the market. The obligation will apply to sellers, distributors, service providers, online marketplaces and importers, and would apply to all types of packaging, including transport and delivery packaging. In addition to the standard reporting requirements, these producers will need to report the UK nation that the packaging ultimately ends up in to allow better tracking of packaging flows and recycling through different parts of the UK. We'll now have a look at the reporting requirements of recyclability assessments for EPR. So the packaging data reporting for the recyclability assessments that will determine how recyclable packaging is and thus determine a producer's fees will be introduced in October 2024. Producers will be required to report in October 2024 on the packaging handled during January 2024 to the end of June 2024. You can see on the screen some of the packaging information required to be reported by producers obligated under EPR, and this is much more granular than reporting requirements now, and this has been taken from page 22 of the consultation document. These are the expected requirements though, and DEFRA did state that it is not finalised. They stated they will continue to work with stakeholders to understand the exact information that producers will need to report, and will publish and clearly communicate the details of the reporting requirements once they're finalised. But to list off a few, on top of the packaging material such as paper, wood, plastic, etc. that is reported currently, with the addition of fibre-based composites, you can see there, we've got from 1 to 10, we've got reporting on any packaging classed as commonly placed in street bins. 2, we've got additional packaging information such as the polymer type of plastics. At number 3, we've got the function of the packaging, so whether it's primary, secondary, tertiary or shipment packaging, shipment being defined as packaging used to deliver goods to households. Point 4, we've got the waste stream that the packaging will enter, so that's either your household or your business waste stream. Point 5, we've got information on the actual product contained within the packaging, such as if it's food or non-food, and then this is to understand why such packaging has been used. At point 6, we've got the different components that make up each unit of packaging. At point 7, we've got recycling disruptors such as metal components, carbon black colouring, UV inks and varnishes. And at point 8, we've actually got recycling enablers such as detectable inks aligned for sorting and reprocessing. At point 9, the format that the packaging actually comes in, for instance, is it a tub, tray, bag, box or a jar? And finally, we have the colour of the material. So all of this information and potentially more will determine how recyclable your packaging is, which then will determine your fees under the modulated fee system, which we'll touch on next. So looking at the costs for producers of the EPR system, so the overall cost of this system to packaging producers is estimated to be at 1.7 billion, which has reduced down from 2.7 billion that was originally proposed in the previous consultation. This is reduced now that EPR just focuses on household waste, and due to England and Northern Ireland scrapping mandatory litter payments, which we'll touch on in a minute. Then the modulated fee system of EPR will be introduced from 2025 and will run alongside the PRN system, with both of these systems for household packaging waste, as we touched on previously. So the PRN system will see producers take responsibility for that same 10 to 20% of costs funding reprocessing of packaging waste, with the EPR system in its modulated fee structure seeing producers cover 100%. So it'll be taking up to 100% of the waste management costs. The EPR modulated fees will be paid to local authorities who will be reimbursed for the full cost incurred of managing household packaging waste, including the collection and treatment of packaging waste from curbside, household waste recycling centres and litter. This gives producers the responsibility for the cost of their packaging throughout its life cycle, which will encourage producers to reduce the use of packaging and use packaging which is easier to recycle. So under the modulated fee system, producers will pay more for harder to recycle packaging, incentivising producers to choose packaging that uses less material and is easier to recycle. So you can see here that the recyclability assessments from the packaging data required on the previous slide will determine how recycled packaging is feeding into this modulated fee system. Again, as a reminder, the PRN system will be the only requirement for business packaging waste in the interim until at least 2026 or 2027, when DEFRA will review the system. One key element of the system which we're yet to receive further clarity on is exactly how the fee modulation will be calculated to enable producers to assess the financial impact specific to their company. This should be delivered by DEFRA this year as they develop the final policy proposals and detailed legislative requirements. We'll now touch on another element of cost to producers, which is packaging waste in street bins and as litter. As mentioned on one of the first slides on how EPR will operate, EPR will focus not only on household packaging waste, but packaging in street bins managed by local authorities. The EPR system will require producers to cover A, the cost of managing packaging likely to be disposed of in street bins, and B, the cost of communication activities aimed at preventing packaging from being littered. However, in England and in Northern Ireland, DEFRA will not introduce separate payments for clearing packaging waste that is littered, though the Scottish and Welsh governments remain committed to their positions set out in the consultation that the cost of clearing packaging from the ground will be included in producer costs, reflecting producers' responsibility for packaging design and the material choice, and that this obligation should incentivise producers to reduce the amount of single-use packaging and take other steps to prevent litter from arising. This here is a clear example of differences in the system between the four nations, which will arise in this instance in the producer costs. Proposals are yet to be drawn up by the Scottish and Welsh governments on how these litter payments could actually work. Now on to some more specific requirements regarding actual recycling of materials. So firstly, we've got labelling. DEFRA have decided to introduce a single mandatory recycling label scheme from 2024. So the already widely used Recycle Now label from OPRL, known as the on-pack recycling label, will be used in this scheme. And you can see two examples of this label at the bottom of the screen. This agreement will apply to packaging only and means that those producers who are required to label their packaging can use this recycle mark. This will enable a single approach across the UK. DEFRA stated that they will place the key requirements within the regulations and publish guidance to help producers understand the requirements in due course. The labelling scheme will be mandatory on all packaging types except plastic films or flexibles from the 31st of March 2026. Plastic films and recyclables will need to be labelled as recycle or do not recycle by the 31st of March 2027, so a year later. And advice regarding labelling of plastic films and flexibles whilst the collection infrastructure is rolled out will be included in the guidance, and we'll touch on this in the next slide. There will be no de minimis threshold for this labelling obligation, and the do not recycling label will be required for all compostable and biodegradable packaging until it can be evidenced that this packaging can be collected and composted separately. And onto a couple more requirements on specific packaging types and the recycling of them. So by the 31st of March 2027, recyclable plastic films and flexible packaging will be collected from both households and businesses for recycling across the UK. These packaging types will be exempt from the new labelling requirements, as we just touched on, until recycling and collections are live, which is expected in 2027. DEFRA stated that they are expecting increased investment into UK plastic reprocessing facilities in the lead up to this. And secondly, from 2024, mandatory store take back scheme for the collection of fibre-based composite cups will be introduced for sellers of this packaging, which are commonly known as disposable coffee cups. Sellers of filled fibre-based composite cups that employ 10 or more full-time employees will be required to provide a dedicated bin for the separate collection of cups in 2024 and report to the regulators the tonnage that they've placed on the market and the tonnage that they've collected and sent for recycling. This leads us nicely into the DRS for drinks containers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, which was touched on in the consultation document. So the EPR consultation response document outlined that the government are currently analysing the DRS consultation responses and therefore will clarify specifics of materials in scope of the deposit return scheme for drinks containers in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, and are therefore exempt from EPR, and how this system will operate. This will be released in due course. However, from the consultation response document, we can see that single-use drinks containers between 50 millilitres and 3 litres in size will be in scope of DRS using an all-in model. However, it will be a bit more complex than this, and again, we will see that this is an example of differences between the 4 nations in the UK, as it has been decided that England and Northern Ireland will not include glass in their DRS, so glass will actually be in scope of EPR, glass drinks containers. So glass targets will resultantly be placed on producers for recycling, and producers will make payments for household glass packaging waste under the EPR system. However, Wales has decided to include glass bottles within their all-in approach, alongside PET, plastic, steel and aluminium cans, which is similar to Scotland, for which all drinks, both soft and alcoholic, that come in PET, plastic, metal and glass are in scope. Containers of these material types, sized from 50 millilitres to 3 litres again inclusive, are part of the DRS scheme in Scotland, which is set to go live on the 16th of August 2023. So to tie everything together with what timeframes we're looking at, in 2022, business is continuing as usual with the current PRN system. In 2023, PRN system will continue and producers will report by category this year as they do currently, and the scheme administrator will be mobilising during this year. In 2024, the PRN system will continue for partial cost responsibility, and recycling assessments will be introduced for packaging reported from October 2024, so that fees can be modulated based on the recyclability of packaging from 2025. Also in 2024, the scheme administrator will be fully functional. And we've just touched on 2025, so on to 2026, DEFRA will be carrying out a review of the EPR and PRN system this year. So following all those key decisions which we've outlined and summarised in that sort of timeline, DEFRA have outlined these next steps following the consultation response document published. So firstly, responses to the deposit return scheme for England, Wales and Northern Ireland consultation and the consistent recycling collections for England consultation will be published in due course. The EPR statutory instrument is to be developed in 2022 to be laid to Parliament in spring 2023, with the regulations expected to come into force in summer 2023. At that third point, to ensure that EPR can be implemented from 2024, the government will be developing a separate data reporting statutory instrument coming into force on the 1st of January 2023 that will cover collection and reporting obligations for 2023 only. These regulations will be replaced by the EPR SI from 2024. Final policy proposals and detailed legislative requirements will take shape over the coming months in 2022, and there may be some minor improvements to the PRN system which might be necessary, resulting from the PRN consultation published alongside this response. So these decisions made by DEFRA undoubtedly present major shifts in the packaging waste system and how we engage with this system as producers, waste reprocessors, exporters, local authorities, packaging schemes such as ourselves and any other organisations involved. Considerable engagement and work will be needed to prepare for this new system, but supporting each other through supply chains means that it can definitely be done and presents an opportunity for producers to improve their data reporting systems and the recyclability of their packaging, for instance, in line with the overarching goals to reduce our environmental impact as a society and use our resources more efficiently. And then to summarise the key bits of information and guidance that we are still waiting for clarification from DEFRA on how the system will actually operate, I've identified these following points. So firstly, the obligation structure of brand owners and importers and other obligated producers such as the distributors and online marketplaces. I think we're still waiting for that clarity on exactly what their obligation is going to look like. Next, the exact data reporting requirements for the recyclability assessments. So although we had that long list on one of the previous slides, DEFRA did outline that they are what they expect the requirements to look like, but they are not the finalised requirements. So if we were able to have those as soon as possible, it would mean businesses can get prepared for the new requirements and sort of get their internal systems in place as well. Then at that third point, the date of when twice annual reporting will commence, as I alluded to before, this wasn't explicitly confirmed by DEFRA in the response document, so confirmation of that would be great from DEFRA. And in the fourth point, guidance on modulated fee calculation and the structure of this to assess the financial impact, which is a major element for obligated businesses to adequately prepare for this change. That's something else we're missing. At the fifth point, how litter payments will work in Scotland and Wales. And then at the sixth point, how DRS will operate, firstly between the four nations. As we said, there's different materials in scope. And then secondly, how DRS will operate with the PRN and the EPR systems as well. It's clear from the government's EPR consultation response that the overarching decisions on how this system will operate has been decided, but practically the details on how they will actually work is yet to be clarified. DEFRA did note though that as final policy proposals and legislative requirements take shape over the coming months, they will publish clarity on these areas, which should provide us with an even better picture of the future packaging compliance system to get businesses prepared. So I'd like to thank you all for listening today, and a special thanks to Sustainable Packaging News for holding this conference and for allowing me the opportunity to speak. If you have any questions about the content covered today or generally about extended producer responsibility, please do get in touch with us at the address shown on screen, which is consultation@complydirect.com. Thanks so much again. Bye.
Next up is Silvia D Alesio, expert in food innovation and packaging design.
So good morning, everyone, and a warm and nice to meet you. I'm delighted to share this conference with all speakers as the main players in direction of a more sustainable recycling packaging system. I'm Silvia D Alesio, expert in packaging design and food product development. I'm a teacher of brand strategy and packaging design at the NABA in Milan, the Graphic Communication Academy, as well as I'm collaborating with the University of Food Science and Technology. I'm graduating with a second level International Scientific Master at the Lund University, joint with AgroParitex and Dublin Institute of Technology in the field of food innovation and product design. Among collaboration, I would like to mention the one with the Netherlands Packaging Center, because thanks to their projects such as the web retail packaging and the design for intended use, I enhance my consulting and designing skills applied to project of startups, for startups. Then I have been part of several judging panels that include contents for new food businesses, product sustainability material, and technology for packaging design proposal. So I could observe a range of brilliant entrances from across the packaging and food value chain to learn their insights on major sustainability topics. And I could understand the relevance of building a new framework within the world of designers, which today is still split between engineering and creative fields. This is why I'm going to discuss at this conference the specific topic of the role of packaging to communicate its function of being recycled and how to brand responsibly packaging. Despite the huge research on remarketing, the communication of it is still a new concept, and there are still many areas to be explored, such as, for example, the ESG criteria and the role of the packaging within the communication process and related activisms. Proper communication of eco-friendly packaging and packaged products is necessary to create value in the consumer journey and help customers in their decision-making when they purchase eco-friendly products and services. Although several companies are investing in transformative energy production in order to achieve sustainable goals, many of them fail to efficiently communicate their efforts. How can brand packaging, in order to raise awareness about companies' sustainability investments and educate the right consumers about the best practices of recycling packaging? Lots of top brands know they have a responsibility to be good global citizens and care for their people, educating the world about both environmental and social issues. However, brands still end up failing in this area. So how to make it into packaging solutions? We'll discuss the giant pack dimensions in terms of the drivers of sustainability and how could be possible to reduce packaging material by avoiding packs and packed waste, considering the impact, of course, on the environment. We'll touch on specific trade-offs, such as technology to design recycling to active intelligence packaging and smart packaging. Other relevant aspects concern the potential increment of the percentage of existing recyclable materials, such as the flexible packaging, and related legislations based on which kind of product they can pack. So there will be a lot of input for recycling industries, but the output is too high and cannot be proceeded. So in the end, I'm very excited to hear your contributions during this conference, and Thanks to the editors of Sustainable Packaging News for giving me this new opportunity. My contribution will regard the issues of packaging recyclability from the end user's point of view, including the waste management system. And I hope this will interest you and that you will enjoy participating.
Very quickly, since I graduated from Lund University about 5 years ago, with a degree in packaging design, many things have changed. And if the holistic approach seemed to be the most innovative one when facing a packaging challenge, with the needs of today's society, this seems not to be enough. And packaging today acts on all levels of the SDGs cake. Today, regulatory updates have introduced the mandatory environmental labeling, but this novelty has given rise to a few interpretative doubts, especially with regard to the content to be labeled, who is obligated to do so, and what is the scope of this obligation, as well as generating great concern among companies and business with regards to the time frame for complying with these obligations. The urge to explore this topic arose when I had the pleasure of participating in the Netherlands Packaging Center work project, named Design for Intended Use, which consists of a packaging design process and outcome that unambiguously identifies and ensures the intended use of the packaging product by the intended user. In this sense, design refers to the creation of a plan or mutual agreement for the co-creation of a product or system or human interaction. Today's design community still doesn't use all the opportunities to improve the quality of the usability of packaging, especially for food packaging. What consumers perceive to be eco-friendly packaging is still unclear, especially in emerging markets. Examples in Italy include a guideline for the environmental labeling of packaging created to offer answers to interpretate doubts on the normative on the environmental labeling of packaging and to direct the correct application of them. These include an indication to the consumer of the composition of the material, how to dispose of it at the end of its life for a quality system of sorting and collection, and other useful information to characterize the packaging from an environmental point of view, such as recyclability, compostability, or recycled content in percentage, for example. So, Italian market data indicate that consumer perception of eco-friendly packaging can be categorized along 3 key dimensions: packaging materials, manufacturing technology, and market appeal. While consumers have a different perception of eco-friendly packaging, their knowledge is limited and more related to packaging materials. For example, biodegradability, recyclability, but also market appeal, such as attractive graphic design and good price. Consumers show little knowledge about manufacturing technologies, but still desire an eco-friendly manufacturing process. Results also suggest that a consumer-defined eco-friendly packaging for food products should be visually appealing while satisfying consumer environmental expectations related to packaging materials and the manufacturing process. So, despite the fact that the consumers of the younger generation prove to be more sensitive, the senior target group is the one that really is in moving from perception to action through purchasing choices. Then the challenge now is how to make sustainable action more accessible. some key points could be identified in the field of legislation and innovation and design. For example, establish balance points between the environmental impact caused by the food waste or the food packaging waste. On the other hand, also consider legislation for an environmental and a nutritional labeling point of view. 3 strategies for green marketing and communication could be identified as here. Consider related marketing for every product sold. For example, a sum of money or a product go to an NGO and is used for a clearly defined environmental or social purpose. To establish a clearly recognizably link to once the brand owner, the cooperation partner, or for the charity purpose, should be consistent with the donor's own portfolio, and the commitment should be documented, should be reported, communicated transparently. Only in this way, brand can build a traceability. Then, transparency and responsibility. Through this motto, a company should provide transparent sustainability reporting that surpasses the legal requirements and discloses, for example, its cooperating suppliers and the origin and the means of obtain the raw material for its products. And this fosters consumer confidence both in the company and its products. Those with a clear consistency have nothing to hide and appear customer focused and trustable. At the end, campaigns and initiative without branding. And this strategy aims to initiate a campaign that promotes the common practice or practice, good practice for sustainability, but which at the first glance has nothing to do with the company and could even harm its product sales. This action will foster credibility, which ultimately contributes to winning new customers and the long-term loyalty of existing ones. In addition, such campaigns offer plenty of opportunities to create personal touchpoints with the target group. It is thus possible to identify which elements influence a consumer perception through their choice to buy a brand, and certainly the packaging is the first touch point with which they can reinforce this involvement. Specifically, the packaging material is the first element that is observed. It is important to offer a wide selection of, for example, carton and paperboard packaging that is renewable, recyclable, and sustainable without compromise on quality. And for example, some model in all brown board, for example, packaging made of a multi-layer craft backboard made of unbleaching pulp. And for example, this carton is brown and it is possible to save more energy by giving up the blanching process and be also able to communicate a more natural look and feel that goes in line with the brand promise. Another important factor is the agreement that the brand makes with the consumer and which is guaranteed also through the interaction with the public, like get customer more involved and to promote the brand or for example engage the customer in this activity. At the end, definitely through the guarantee brands could also guarantee their environmental environmental approach through certification. Let's consider on recent years legislation was published which transport some directive from European on waste and European directive and on packaging and packaging waste with the specifics on criteria for the management of packaging waste, and the wording of the label obligation introduced by the rule leaves room for interpretative doubts, especially concerning the contents to be labeled. And and this obligation and certification definitely help a clear and transparent labeling process. So in conclusion, the intent is to accept that there is a need for packaging and to concentrate on own best to satisfy that need, at the same time controlling and minimize the resulting environmental impacts. So the implementation of a policy starts from several studies, or may well be proceed by the assignment of responsibility for all environmental matters to the brand manager within the organization. And this in turn should lead to the creation of an environmental team that will prepare and manage the plan for enacting the policy. It was a pleasure, and for more question and discussion about this topic, you are welcome to contact me. Thank you.
Lastly, Chakravarthi will now talk about the reality of single-use plastics.
Welcome, my dear friends. Greetings to all of you. During this conference, I would like to talk about the single-use plastics, reality. Well, the problem, of course, the plastic will outlive all of us. Are you sure? But if you see the current conditions, it's going to be like that. The plastic has really intruded into our day-to-day lives so much. We just cannot live without plastics nowadays. Well, that may not be all the true in every aspect, but many of our the daily usages, be it domestic or industry or in the business, everywhere, we cannot live without plastics, unfortunately. If you see the estimated decomposition rates, I think the picture tells very clearly. Well, all of you know the paper might decompose maximum 4 weeks, and the naturally available leaves in 1 to 3 months. Look at it, a milk carton can take 5 years, and the plastic bag takes 10 to 20 years. Of course, the can 400 years, and the bottle 500 years. I do not know. And the last one, if you see, it never styrofoam. Yeah. How long to decompose at sea? I think this gives another picture of why we are really worried about the plastics today, because each variety takes tens of hundreds of years to decompose. And we are talking about the ocean plastic and the waste in the ocean, and the poor littering practices all over the world, not just in one country or one continent, everywhere in the world. Even if they are disposed properly, we're not sure whether they end up in landfills or they go to the recycling. Why do we use plastics for packaging here? Because they are safe, hygienic, lightweight, durable, secure, versatile, of course, recyclable as well. The question is, can you really ban single-use plastics, my dear friends? I think we need to think again. Can you really stop using all these? I think day in, day out, especially in the pandemic, imagine we are depending upon so much on packaged food and beverages. I think we can never avoid outrightly all these containers, especially in the food, leave about the life-saving medicines, yeah, which we are talking about. Can we really ask the question to a physician? Can we do away these plastics in life-saving and frontline defense medicines or the injectables, etc.? The tins containing the pandemic. Imagine, my dear friends, if you do not have that kind of a single-use plastics, we still call that okay. The gloves, especially the face masks. All these, I think they acted as great human saviors. Of course, now we are facing all the problems of throwing them in the environment. But imagine during the pandemic period, if this frontline defense equipment, whatever you call, this is not there, imagine what would have been the situation today. Well, you see these things, can we realistically not use them at all? I don't think so. Yeah, you have alternative options, but can you outrightly do them away from your day-to-day life? We need to think again, my dear friends. Okay, we can ban plastics, definitely, but not all of them, single-use plastics. Does anyone else feel like we could do better? Yes, there are ways to be better. Environmental consciousness, yes, 46% of this is a survey conducted by global chemicals company Kemira. 46% of the people say, I'm willing to pay more for renewable packaging in food, such as carton or other bio-based material. And 40%, I always recycle cartons and cardboard. Yeah, we have doubts. I was trying to reduce the time of plastics in my lives. 58%. I would feel negatively about increased plastic use in food packaging. Yes, I think all of us, whether you are in the business of plastics or not in the plastics, many of us have that kind of a guilty feeling. Even though we are we are enjoying the benefits of having the plastics in our life, we still have that feel of guilt while using them, right? Try using alternatives wherever possible. That's a solution. If you see plastic straws, I think totally can be avoidable. Plastic containers, water bottles, you need to do the recyclable ones everywhere, as you see all of them. Alternatives to plastic bags. Yes, if you talk about the carbon footprint account, probably, well, the paper bags also have some problem in that, but invariably we consider now better than using plastic bags, maybe bags made of recyclable and reusable bags are much better as per me, especially on made of jute fiber and other natural fibers, etc. And then, of course, the paper bags too. Well, a lot of initiatives from the global corporations. Kellogg is aiming to switch to completely reusable and recyclable compostable packaging by the end of 2025. Coke stated that by 2030, it will collect and recycle one bottle or can for each one itself. That means it's a total carbon neutrality it wants to achieve. Unilever takes a proactive stance on plastic packaging and investing in circular economy initiatives as well. McD announced a commitment to have 100% of its guest packaging made from renewable, recycled, or certified sources. I think they are already progressed in making such moves. Hershey also doing that. Well, the way forward always first reduce and reuse and recycle. Reduce means what resources you are using and how you might use less of them. And reducing the consumption also saves more resources than reusing and recycling, of course, all of us know. Reuse, of course, use an item again after it has already been used, and not always it may be possible, but if you have that in your mind, definitely you will work towards that objective. And reuse includes an item for the same function, or creatively you can always use something else, okay? And recycle, of course, that's what our conference is talking about today, recyclable packaging. How much we can recycle. Probably 100% of whatever we consume, if we can recycle in some or other format, I think that made our life simpler, and we don't be called names, all the plastic producers. Okay, recycling options are vary in Oregon. Be sure to recycle only items that are accepted by your hauler. That's also important. Reducing plastic content in existing packaging, that is being done. You heard about the paper bottle revolution. People are talking about with a minimal presence of plastic, the paper bottle. I think soon we are going to witness much revolutionary. When I say revolutionary, yes, technologically we are advancing and a lot has been happening in this sphere. But only thing is we are waiting to know this affordability also. With a plastic bottle, definitely it will be expensive. So the more we produce, I'm sure the affordability also will become better and better in the coming days. We are all looking forward to this. Well, simply I placed in my roof garden what we used. Place some greens in the used water bottles. This is another pail, the paint pail. I think it's some kind of a coating for the varnish we use in our printing machines. The pails we used. Look at it, how nicely we grow the brinjal, the vegetables in this. It's in my roof garden, incidentally. Well, for kids, we can use, of course, these are not the permanent solutions, but definitely, instead of throwing away, you can expand their life for another 1-2 years at your home, and then maybe you can put them in the recycle bins again after that. Well, you see a small bus stop made out of used bottles here in India. Recycle all single-use plastic. That would be the major target for all of us. And resource circulation system, environmental objectives at each stage. Look at it, how the collection, recycling, total, the circularity, how it comes. Right from the purchases and then design, production, distribution, and then usages and disposal. Supplier purchasing criteria is important. Supplier hazardous substance management. Management of hazardous substances related to products, environmentally friendly materials, eco rating system, efficient logistics, green packaging. You need to do the distribution and then usage products with high energy efficiency, service operations to improve resource efficiency, proper collection, recycling activities, use of recycled materials, and be it plastic or paper, and reuse it properly. Employ new methods of collecting and sorting wastages. And we are hearing, of course, the holy grail, all of you might have heard. In Europe, it is popular identifying each variety of plastic by a special code, so that in the sorting area, it will be automatically segregates which material goes into which recycling stream. Then life will be easier. I think it's a long way to go, but enough exercise is being taken place in that area. Holy Grail also we are talking about. So we need to invent and employ new methods of collecting and sorting waste. The traditional collection and recycling no longer works. It might on pen and paper, on a paper, it can look nice, but in reality, it won't suffice your needs, my dear friends. We need to invent the better ways. Plastic to fuel, all of you are aware how we can, plastic gasification, it's as good as doing it again, but how much it is efficient, we need to see, but it's one of the options, definitely. So end of the day, we all know it's not so easy. We know when we're talking about usability of the single-use plastics, whether it is whether we can ban them completely or we can talk about limited use and then we focus on recycling. But at this point of time, I would like to say to you people a few points. Better we all know. In fact, I would like to submit to you, plastic packaging is the largest contributor to a product's environmental impact. We all know, everybody is talking about. But in reality, my dear friends, do you know, the product inside what we pack usually has much greater environmental impact, but that goes unnoticed. You know the food waste and other wastages, how much they contribute to the environment negatively. Okay, environmental impact of plastics are greater than any other packaging material. This is generally being told in every platforms. I'm not disagreeing, but at the same time, I'm not agreeing to this actually, because actually plastic generally has lower overall environmental impacts than if you talk about glass, metal, or most of the other categories. Just because it's not being recyclable properly and we litter through poor littering practices, it is being shown as an evil and a devil to the society today. I think that we have to make a note of it. And reusable products are always better than single-use plastics. That's another, what can I say, myth or whatever. Actually, reusable products have lower environmental impacts, even though, yeah, I'm not against the reusable. I've been talking about all the reusability, etc. But definitely, it's not possible every time, because when they're used enough times to offset the material and energy used to make them reusable, sometimes it'll be more, you are leaving a more carbon footprint than using a fresh material. So that is also have to be noticed. Recycling and composting should be the highest priority. I think this should be our goal. Truth to be told to people, and environmental benefits associated with recycling and composting also need to be debated and compared to the efforts of overall consumption reduction. Reduce is reduction in the consumption is more definitely gives a better results. And if you talk about zero waste efforts that eliminates completely single-use plastics, minimize the environmental impacts of an event. In reality, the benefits, yeah, when you divert waste from the landfill and waste reduction and mindful consumption is important, and careful consideration of the types of the quantities of the product consumed are far larger. These benefits are far larger than the completely not using them. But at the end of the day, we need to be very responsible, my friends. Not all the single-use plastics we can avoid, but wherever it is possible, I think it's better to avoid those single-use plastics and go for alternatives, or go for a reusable material wherever it is possible. And when you have to use single-use plastics, well, needless to say, the disposal is the criteria. If you are making sure whatever you use, whatever the plastics you use, if you are making sure they go to your municipal urban recyclable stream, I think your goal is achieved. It's not just simply segregating your wastage at your home and keeping them in bins, etc., but make sure that whatever you dispose, whatever you litter, go to a proper recycling stream. And if everybody is educated towards that objective, I think most of our problems get solved, my dear friends. Well, this is a small brief on the occasion of this recyclable packaging conference initiated by Sustainable Packaging News. Let's keep in contact and interact for more and more knowledge enrichments and interactions in the future. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Have a nice day, my dear friends.
I would like to say a massive thank you to our two sponsors, KURZ and Dow, for their videos and for sponsoring our conference. It is greatly appreciated. And thank you for watching our recyclability conference.